So I have a very special guest, a guy that I have tried to get on this podcast for months. You are a special guest, man. Ross Enamait, you're still in Maine, living in Maine?
No, Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Did you used to live in Maine, or did I screw that up?
No, New England. I miss New England. It's
You
close
know what?
enough.
I got to start the podcast over, but since I don't edit, I'm not going to start it over. I used to, you know what? I used to think Maine, because there was a famous boxer who had a camp in the New England area in Maine. And I always used to think about you when I would drive to Gunkwik.
What, Joey Gamache or?
No, it was.
Yeah. Because Gamache is out of Maine. He's world. I think he's the only world champion from Maine.
It was crazy. But let's blow past my horrible introduction.
No, that's cool.
And get so. Most of my audience, Ross, are law enforcement, military, martial artists, CrossFitters, and they better know who you are because you're kind of like this underground legend, right? You're the guy, and it's kind of ironic because I've wanted to talk to you and interview you for years, but every time I contacted you, you're like, I don't do podcasts, man. So it's kind of cool that you're doing this, but I especially wanted to do it during this lockdown, during the quarantine, all of it, because you have been doing body weight, improvised, low tech workouts for almost 20 years. I mean, you started your biz 19 years.
I started the biz, but it was before, I grew up in the boxing gym. We've been doing that, since I was little. So, I mean, I think I guess that's what you get most guys that, if you came up boxing, wrestling, martial arts, you probably were in some rundown gym. They didn't have a lot of equipment. That was kind of how my life started. So.
Yeah, but I mean, there's two. You remember? I forget which Rocky it was with the one with Dolph Lundgren where he's in the high tech, the Beverly Hills.
Rocky IV, yeah.
Yeah, Rocky IV, and then there's Stallone out running through the snow and chopping wood, and that's kind of you. And anyone who follows you online, you literally run through the snow and do all this stuff. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So if you're right off the bat, if you don't know who Ross is, and I think your Instagram is just Ross Training.
Ross Training, yeah.
But it's amazing stuff. It's amazing how creative you are. How old are you now, if I can ask?
43.
43. Like your fitness and strength. Do you find, like, if I set up a fight with you right now versus you when you were 20, who would win?
It's a tough call because when I was 20, I was actually fighting competitively, so I was a lot lighter. So I mean, it's like if we're fighting in the ring or if we're fighting in the streets, it might be a little different because I just have a lot more size on me now than I did 20 years
ago. Right. You're being humble with this, but I'll tell you this, and I just want to like bring this out because you are humble and down to earth, and your message has always been consistent. And that's one of the reasons of how I pick people during what I call these like candid COVID talks is, your message didn't change. You didn't suddenly go, hey, look at me, I've been doing this. It was like here's a good time to look at this. It was just like, let's revisit this because this is what you need now. You need your fitness can help your immunity, and you don't need to be a member at a big gym to stay in shape. You just got to get creative.
Exactly.
So, but I want to go back to the question because you dodged it well. Obviously, if I was setting it up in a ring and you went, well, me when I was 20, I was fighting, my timing was different. I was like, now I'm coaching. I'm talking about if I'm talking philosophically, and I've always said this until recently, the older Tony knows so much more about violence, about hitting hard, about composure. Because like, what are the wild cards as a coach when you're coaching an athlete? You can teach them the physicality, but the hardest thing to teach somebody is, hey, this is our plan, stay focused, manage your fear, and execute. But you can teach almost anybody to, punch. And I'm generalizing. Some people. Yeah. So for me, I just have been watching you for almost 20 years. And you're you're a fucking machine, right? So, you know, so it's awesome. Anyways, I know you're really enjoying all these compliments. You're sitting here, you
No.
guys see him, he's like blushing and giggling, and like it's like we're going out on a date. I'm going. Anyways, I'm betting on you, the older you, in the fight. I just think you're so much more mentally mature and tough. And that's just a philosophy when I'm coaching people, because they
Yeah.
go, because
I mean, the only thing I would say to that though is like, I mean, there's obviously a mental aspect. I know more now. I wish I could have kind of coached myself when I was younger. I was a knucklehead, and I got to a lot of fights outside the ring, had hand props. But the only thing is, I mean, I'm actually a real hands-on coach. Like I train with the fighters. I do everything. It's even sparring. But when you're coming up and you're actually fighting, there's just the mental side is important. But when you're sparring 3 times a week, fighting, especially in the amateurs, you're fighting. You could be fighting every week. You could have a tournament where you fight 5 times in a week. So there is a sharpness
right.
that you have just through activity that, as the years go by, if you're not actually doing it, you might know more, but you aren't applying it. You're training, but it's different to be, taking shots and, dealing with it every other day or whatnot. So
100%. No, I agree with that, and particularly in a sport as brutal as boxing, where you can be in your 80s and flipping around as a martial artist, but you're not getting hit, right?
Yeah,
so if you stay limber, and you'll see it. And I'm being more philosophical because look, there's so many aging athletes. We're all aging athletes, right?
Yeah.
That I'm so big on the whole mindset and the fear management stuff as it applies to life that I one of the things I often hear, Ross, is someone going, "Man, I wish I was younger." And I go, "Well, yeah, that's cool, but you're not." So, so like, how are you going to think? And then I would just tell people, and of course, my perspective was always the street. And you did say that maybe in the street it'd be different in the ring. And I agree with you, because you can see fighters who are mature and they try to come back, and then past 35, unless you're like an outlier, like everything changes. Interesting. Good answer. Honest answer. So let's dive into a little bit more specific to what's going on now, which is because I want, when I bring people on here, I always want them like to take away, get to know somebody a little bit more, and through osmosis, is there anything that listening to an honest conversation that I can take back to my life or to my day? And sometimes I'll read something or I'll hear something, and that quote suddenly appears in a seminar I do the next week because it just impacted me. So super. I remember reading. Did you ever read Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman?
No.
Interesting book. Old books, again, probably 20 years old. I don't know what it's done, but the book was really interesting, and so I started checking him out a little bit more. And in one of his articles or something I saw somewhere was a quote: "When you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you're outnumbered." And I read that, I was like, holy shit, when you face just one. And now, like, I read it once and I put it anytime I'm talking about fear, multiple assailants, all that. Hey, if you don't believe in yourself, you're already outnumbered. So it's pretty heavy. So we're looking for, that's what I did is I just put a little pressure on you now. I need a famous quote, a Ross Enamait quote. But you don't have to come up with it now. It'll come out in the conversation. Maybe. Okay, personally, how you doing through all this?
I'm good. I mean, to be honest with you,
nothing changed.
I've always kind of been, my existence is to be self-sufficient, whether it's training or business. So to me, not a whole lot has changed. I mean, it's unfortunate what's going on in the world, but I mean, my daily routine hasn't really changed too much. We were training for a fight in May that got canceled. That's the only thing that it's been pushed back to July, and even that might get pushed back, but we're still in training camp. We still got to get ready in case the fight is on. But my own training, nothing's really changed. I'm pretty self-sufficient. Whether it's, like you said, body weight stuff or free weights, I have access to everything here. So,
dig it. Perfect. Family, how are they doing with it?
It's just everybody's got to just get on with it. So I mean, there's no you know, you just got to take it one day at a time, right? We're all in this together. So.
Is your family separated, or are you kind of still close in proximity?
No, everybody. My mother's only an hour away,
Right.
so it's
And she's
um,
doing okay.
Connecticut's a small state, so you're an hour away from everything. So
Right. And the reason I asked that and I always bring it up is like sometimes somebody like you and the other people that I've invited on, they're type A, self-sufficient, like I got it, you make things done. And sometimes, and I bring this up in every show because I'm trying to remind so much of my audience is that too. They're a lot of them are frontline people, firefighters, emergency
yeah,
service. And we forget that, like, even for me, uh, like I've worked out of my house for 15 years. My office is in my house. I used to have an office that I never went to, and I closed it because I was like, I don't go there.
yeah,
My garage is a gym. The only time I would leave is if I had to go teach a seminar. And
yeah,
so, like, for me, it's almost like what, and this sounds obnoxious, what has really changed for me. I mean, some big things changed because this really hurt my business, but uh it's like I don't go out to eat now. I eat at home every night. Like,
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, the thing that it's kind of sucked for us is just that the boxing gyms, the public gyms, are closed, so
right,
we're kind of at a standstill as far as we travel a lot for sparring. So or guys come to us. So that's something that we're missing now because you can't really risk it. I mean, you don't know.
right,
So the gyms are closed. So training is continuing. It's just the sparring is limited right now. So you hope that the
right,
world opens up before too long. But
right.
we all kind of got to sit and wait.
Yeah, agreed. Um, Now you were an intuitive entrepreneur back in the day. I mean, you came out with a book super early. How many books have you done?
I had a couple, well, way back, like around 2001 or two. I had a couple early books that I eventually discontinued, and then I came out with Never Gymless, Infinite Intensity back around '05, '06. And then I put out a book, Untapped Strength, in 2014, which was kind of more specific: hands, grip, forearms. I had a lot of hand injuries as a fighter, so just trying to help people that were in the same situation.
Right. Yeah. And so I mean, intuitive entrepreneurs, like now like all the marketing has come out with a book, and then you do this deal and you have this, you did that because you're like trying to help people. You believed in a certain methodology of training, but you created an online business, an audience back before it was cool to do that. And so how has the lockdown, as you alluded to, okay, the gym's closed, you don't get to spar, but how has this affected your business, and what have you had to do to adapt or
Oh, I mean, to be honest, it's like I have the books online, but I never created a business where it's something I have to depend on. I did it because I liked it.
right,
So my activity is more hands-on in the gym. I mean, that's kind of what I consider to be my business, as a
right,
coach. So the online stuff extends your reach. You can help people you wouldn't be able to help otherwise. But I've never really, even when I first wrote the book, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to have a business. I wanted to
right,
make money from it. I think, if you go into it like that, maybe you're not going to be as genuine or as authentic. Where for me, it was kind of like I came up in a boxing gym. I tell the story. We used to train at a gym. It was the basement of a housing project. We didn't have a ring. We had one heavy bag, a speed bag, and a place to do calisthenics. So, and all the coaches I had coming up, they gave me their time for free. They were volunteer amateur coaches. So it's kind of like the least I could do is try to give it back, because if I hadn't walked into the gym when I was younger, I don't know where I would have ended up. I always said boxing saved me. So if I can give information out, whether it's through a blog or social media, and help someone else, more power to me, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
okay,
It's not about like how many books can I sell and what can I make. Like right now, I got Never Gymless for $1. I think
hmm.
the credit card company probably takes 35 cents from that. So
Right,
I'm not in it to try to get rich selling books.
interesting. Good for you, man. No, that's cool. And it's cool that it's such a classic boxing story. How many people you hear that how boxing saved their life? And
Yeah.
there's something, and I'm sure you've seen the meme, like the, I'm going to screw it up, but never trust a man that's never been punched in the face. Have you seen that? Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's something changes when you, and I remember,
And that's the world now. It's crazy. Like, you grew up, I don't know, you got into a fight at school, it wasn't a big deal. Now it's like,
no,
I don't know, the world's changed.
yeah, oh my God, you look at me sideways, I'm going to tell on you,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. And people don't understand how hard boxers hit. Like in every,
Yeah.
I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, but I'll let you loop this up. But because I've got like not a script, but specific questions to this type of interview during the pandemic, but because it's you and boxing, and I'm such a huge boxing fan. In the 80s, so I was in the late 80s, I really fell in love with boxing, and I started to go to the Hilton's boxing gym in Montreal. I don't know
Okay.
if you remember Davey and Matthew Hilton, and
Yeah.
so so for people listening, like boxing was still 15 rounds back then, and
Yeah.
Davey and Matthew, I think, both fought for world titles. I think Davey Hilton fought, who was Hagler's sparring partner at one point, who became, I forget who it was, but it was a big heavyweight fight, but not heavyweight, middleweight fight. So I became friends with them, and I go to the gym, and I was a good athlete. I was sharp, but I was a martial artist. I wasn't a real boxer, but for martial artists, I was a good boxer. And I started to get, I wasn't cocky. I was always very reserved, but I thought I was a better boxer than I was in the back of my mind. And I was in New York.
Which is common though, really. It's like most people on the outside don't realize till they get in there. Not saying that was you, but I'm just most people in general.
But it was. I can tell a story that a lot of people don't know. I was in business in New York a few years later, and my martial art career had expanded. I've been in magazines, and I couldn't go places where somebody recognized me, they wanted to hit me. It was like you mean that, oh, you're the martial art guy. Yeah. Like, you want to spar? And you know this story, Ross. Hey, let's go light. Anyway. Right. And then it's like worse than any fight you've ever had. It's like, and
it's likely you get hit.
and I tell people, like, if you watch some guys, like, some sparring is worse than any real fight. Very often.
Especially rival gyms, you get some,
Yeah. So anyways, so I'm in New York, and boxing fan, I go, you know what? I'm going to go to Gleason's, and I'm going to spar. So I go to Gleason's, and I go to the manager, and I say, listen, I'm kind of a well-known martial artist, but I'm not a great boxer, but I want to box with like a real guy. Because in Montreal, I couldn't get that type of sparring. If I went somewhere, everyone always tried to hurt me, and they were always better than me. So it was like I was risking getting injured, but I just wanted to be in the sport. So he says, yeah, I got you. So I end up sparring with a guy who, and I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he was a ranked boxer, cool guy. I was about 180 pounds at the time. So he was like 6 or whatever. And we start moving, and I'm so used to, and I'm nowhere in your league. And all my coaching was always for martial arts stuff. But as a coach with students that are younger than you and scared of you, I would drop my hands a lot, right? So I'd always be, throw the punch. And so I had these unconscious habits that I didn't realize. So now I'm in the ring with this pro who, he's here like this, and he's moving, and I've got that nervous energy, and I'm moving around, but I've got this ego in the back of my head going, you know what, it'd be really nice if after they say, like, you're really good, man, for a guy who doesn't box. Like, I wanted to get some sort of ego compliment. So this is a long story that you're going to dig this. I go like this, I go whack, and I fire a jab at the guy, and I hit him right in the face, like nice and clean jab.
Yeah.
He doesn't fucking blink or move or whatever. And I say to myself, wow, this might be easier than I thought. Yeah. And so we're moving around a little bit more. and I see his hands doing this, and I step in and I fire the jab, and everything goes into slow motion. There's an expression in law enforcement training called tachypsyche. It's a big fancy word for your brain in a dangerous moment just starts to compress time, and everything goes into the slow motion. I hit him in the face again, and as my hand comes back, I see his shoulder move. I just see his shoulder move, and he hit me with a right as my hand came back. And I realized what he had done is watched one punch, saw me jab, my hand dropped after the jab. Next punch, he let it come in. As that hand dropped, boom, he fucking hit me with a right. And I woke up against the ropes, holding him in a clinch. You know, I was having flashbacks to Sugar Ray Robinson. You know, who's the guy that he,
Right.
you know, with the, you never know.
Jake LaMotta, you know.
LaMotta fight. But anyways, my whole point there, I hijacked the call for a second, but it was fun to watch you laughing at my pain. Because I want to say, and I want you to talk about this a little bit, but I wanted my audience to know I have never been hit harder by anybody other than a boxer. Boxers, when that punch hit me and it was a flash knockout, it cracked my nose. Suddenly you're like, holy fuck, I'm clinching the guy, and I realize, whoa, okay, I just made a big mistake here. And it humbled me so much. It made me realize and have so much more respect for boxing. And I would tell people afterwards, I go like, if you think you're a badass, just go box. It doesn't have to be a pro. Just go box with somebody who boxes. There's like even a light guy fucking hits you at a body shot. You know, like it feels like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. But part of it too, though, it's like it's not, you know, just to like your story. It's one thing. I mean, I'm sure the guy could crack. I'm not saying he couldn't crack, but you know, it's also you didn't see the shot, so you know, and that's where a good fighter, you know, he lets you get comfortable pumping your jab and dropping in, and the next one comes back and he slips or he follows you the right hand. You never see the right hand, and you're sitting there like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
So it hurts more when you don't see it. You know, it's like when you fight a guy. There's guys that are heavy-handed, but maybe they're slow. So if you can kind of see some shots and maybe roll with it, where you got a sharp guy where it's like, oh, where'd that come from? And you're waking up.
Right.
You know, it's the sharpness sometimes that it's worse than the heavy-handedness.
Yeah, the 100% there. I mean, Matthew Hilton was not nearly as fast as like Davey was a welterweight, and so I would spar with Matthew. He was never trying to hurt me. We'd become friends, but I got a videotape of him hitting me with a body shot and like literally lifting me off the ground. I mean, he was so strong, but I had time to get those elbows down, and then boom, the shot would come in, and you would still be like it'd be like holding an airbag for a sidekick, you know, like in martial arts. So if you're listening to this and you've only done martial arts and you think that you hit hard and you move well, try and find somebody who's not going to kill you, but go experience what it's like. And it's a whole different world. It's a crazy thing there. But
it's even like what you said, though. It's not even just, it's all like you said, you were kind of tight, you know, and it's like, that's where, you know, it's like Floyd Mayweather, he boxed so much that it was like just playing like a game of pickup basketball to him. So he could do 12 rounds in the gym without even breathing hard, you know, because everything's efficient and he's relaxed, where a lot of people, they think it looks easy and then they get in there and now it's like, oh, we're really nervous. And it's like, so it doesn't matter. You could be the fittest guy in the world, but if you're sitting here and you're all tight and you're jacked up, you're going to be tired in 30 seconds anyway. Where the boxer, you know, not the boxer, could be a mixed martial artist, just whatever the discipline is. When you do it day in and day out, it's just, that's your comfort. It's your home. You're relaxed and you can do it all day. You know, and I think that's a lot of times what people on the outside don't realize. I tell guys, like, you couldn't win a round against a heavy bag. You know, it looks easy, but after 3 minutes, you're going to be huffing and puffing because it's not something you do every day.
That's a great point. And you just reminded me, I had a student named Peter who was a triathlete, and he came in and he was one of these guys that just wanted to do everything. And he'd been at the gym maybe 2 weeks. And my old gym, I always had rings at my place. So we would box and kickbox and do stuff in the ring all the time. Again, not qualifying because I have so much respect for boxers. We had, I had 10 bags at my gym and the ring. It was a really nice gym.
Yeah.
But it was to supplement and augment our street self-defense program. And
Yeah.
it was teaching people not to blink, not to be afraid, to stay in the fight, to be able to, pound on each other. And we weren't hitting in the air or pulling shots. We were actually hitting.
Yeah.
But I remember Peter coming in, and he was, about 15 years older than most of the students, successful businessman, but he was a triathlete, like skinny guy, and he was doing private lessons because he could afford them, and he was doing group class. He was a fanatic, and he goes, "I want to get in the ring and spar." And I said, "Peter, you gotta know what to do. Like, if you don't know how to move your head, or it's going to be a waste of time, right?" He goes, No. He says, "Come on, let's do it." I said, "You don't understand." And you just made me remember this, Ross, because he couldn't finish the second round.
Yeah.
And everyone listening to this, he was a triathlete. He
run all day. Yeah.
He got so tight, and his breathing got so vertical and so constricted because of his nervous tension that he literally stopped in the middle of the second round.
Yeah.
Hands on his knees, over going. And, we weren't even I wasn't hitting him. It was just nervous exhaustion. Missing.
Yeah. And that's why, as a fighter, like even amateur experience is so important, because you have to go through the weight in the dressing room, the uncertainty of who you're fighting. And you get in the ring in your first fight, you're already tired. The fight hasn't even started yet. Your legs are weak. Everything, not everyone wants to admit that, but everybody feels it.
I'm so glad.
Whether you call it fear or anxiety or nerves, it's a combination of all of that. And the more you do it, though, the more familiar you get with it, and the more you're able to kind of manage those emotions.
Right. And that's, it's great that you brought that up, because that's the area that I've studied the most, in what I do is, we used to do like Fight Club. We'd have fights, like scenario fights, once a month for all through the 80s. I started a seminar called the Panic Attack Drill, because everybody who came in, it was like a play on words, not to make fun of anyone having anxiety attack, but back in the 80s, that probably right now I would get reprimanded, and there'd be like some article on Tony Blauer shaming people with anxiety. But in the 1980s, it was called the Panic Attack, because we would do these things where I'd have we'd do a seminar, and you'd have a street fighter, you'd have a guy who doing what today we would call MMA, you'd have a judo guy. Like, people would come in, and we would put on Kyokushinkai helmets, those plexiglass helmets, hockey gauntlets, Taekwondo bamboo chest guards, baseball shin guards. It was like this Frankenstein equipment, and we'd just beat the shit out of each other. But it wasn't let's just fight. It was, you would do a scenario. So if you were in gear, I'd say, "Hey, Ross, go stand over there. You're at the bus stop." And these two guys walk up to you, and they go, "Hey, give us your money." And you would have to do the scenario with the talking. Like, no one was allowed to just, sucker punch somebody. There had to be. And what we discovered were two things. That one, if the role playing was good and somebody ambushed somebody right away, that there was always a flinch, a cover of the head. And that's how I built my whole spear system of the weaponizing the start of flinch. But the other thing I noticed over and over again, and it was just intuitive, I'd go, "They're like, that guy, I know that guy can fight, but he just quit. He covered, he went down, he was overwhelmed, he's on the ground. He's like, we didn't do but he's like, okay. And I noticed this, that there were, and I say it like this, the people who manage their fear manage to fight. The people who manage their fear manage to fight. That it wasn't even, and I'm sure that you've had guys that, in the classic sense, like, you're stopping the fight because they're not going to stop. You've decided, like, this guy's taking too much punishment. He's managing his fear, where other people are like the no mas, the classic no mas moment, where I'm done. But you said something I want to come back to. You said that there's a fancy term. Again, most of my business is training law enforcement and military, and there's a term called stress inoculation. And it's an adaptation, but it's an emotional, psychological, physical adaptation. What you described as why somebody needs to have that amateur experience and continue that is this adaptation to the waiting, the nerves, and I've had guys where, you know, it's the first round and they're going, hey, what's wrong with my legs? You know, like that's nerves, right? And there's no way, you can't trick your body. You got to go through it. You got to go
Yeah,
through the experience.
and part of it too, it's like, especially like with a competitive fighter, first, the beginner, he's nervous to spar. He's shitting his pants just because he has to go spar 3 or 4 rounds.
Right.
And then eventually he says, okay, I can actually do the rounds. I'm not dying. I've survived the last few weeks, and he's not as tired from a nervous standpoint sparring. But then he's kind of got to start that process all over again when he starts to compete, because now he's going to a tournament or a show and he's fighting someone he's never seen before. Whereas in the gym,
He knows the guys.
yeah, there's some familiarity. There's a coach there who's going to save you if it gets too bad. If you're taking too many shots, you're going to stop and say, okay, hey, slow down, just work with him. Whereas in a fight, you don't know what you're stepping into. So first you got to get experience in the gym, and then you got to get some real world experience competing. And then, even there, it's like, you could have 200 amateur fights, then you turn pro, and it's kind of starting all over again. Now you're like,
Right.
wow, there's a big arena here. There's no headgear. This is where they're wearing smaller gloves.
Yeah, that's it's so true. Metaphorically, everyone listening, metaphorically, that's no different than life. Running your business, being in a relationship, like starting. I interviewed a guy yesterday, pretty well-known social media guy named Lewis Howes, and he, one of the questions I asked him, he goes, I said, what's been the hardest thing about this? And he said, well, one of the things is his girlfriend had just moved in January, and he was used to being alone, right? And she was used to being alone. So if you move in with somebody, you make all these adjustments, and then, like a month and a half later, he said, like, now it's the quarantine. Like we can't even do that. So
Yeah.
metaphorically, what you're describing, and everyone listening carefully, and everyone on almost 99% of the people I think who listen to my No Fear podcast do some sort of martial arts, boxing, Krav Maga. They're doing something. And what I want you to hear out of what Ross is explaining here are two things. One, we get comfortable with the home field advantage. We understand you will catch yourself the next time I know you do this because everyone does this. If you're going to pick who you're going to spar with, you consciously or unconsciously pick somebody you're as good as or better than.
Yeah. No one's signing up for an ass whooping,
Right.
They're not.
That's classic. I love that you said that, because I describe the same psychology with predators in the street. My main thing is teaching people about real practical self-defense. And I go, listen, part of the element of surprise, if you need to defend yourself, is the psychology of the attacker never thought that you were going to fight back and be successful, because nobody at a behavioral level goes, we're hanging out on the corner going, hey, that's that guy, Ross Enamait. He's a street fighter and he's a fucking, boxer, and he's strong as fuck. I think if we mug him, we're probably going to get knocked out. Okay, nobody's thinking that.
Yeah.
So unless it's a hit on you, right, and like it's deliberate, but if it's an opportunistic crime, and this is actually an important psychology, and it's interesting that you see it too in the gym, because I've noticed it in the street. That's that element of surprise, that nobody, like you said, signs up for the ass whooping. And so what you need to do if you want to get better, and you're listening to Coach Ross's advice here, it's you've got to step out of the fear loop and be pushed. It's that pressure creates the diamonds. You're not going to be a faster runner if you're always like running against people who are slower than you.
And like boxing wise, it's like, as a coach, that's one of the reasons I like to go to other gyms where we go spar another gym, because we get good work at home, but sometimes you're walking into someone else's gym, no one wants to look bad in front of other boys. So
right.
You're on foreign ground now, and you don't really know what their coach is telling them, try to knock his head off. And it kind of helps prepare you for what you're going to see when you're going in next fighting.
Yeah.
And again, that's where sometimes a good coach is important, though, because you might not take those risks on your own, where if the coach is saying, listen, you're sparring this guy, you're going to spar that guy, or you got to go.
Right. Yeah. I think the most powerful thing there is something, you know, when I coach, I do a lot of work with coaches from all different sports, from whether it's CrossFit or martial arts or defensive tactics trainers. And I tell them there are technicians, there are trainers, and there are coaches. A technician is, these are the biomechanics. The trainer understands the rep scheme of how am I going to build stamina, strength, you know, speed, agility, and but there's very few coaches. A coach understands how to inspire performance. A coach understands that he may say something completely different to this fighter, you know, or this athlete to that person. And there's not a lot of good coaches out there.
There's
They're
a great Vince Lombardi quote about that, something to the effect that coaches who can outline plays on a chalkboard are a dime a dozen. You know, it's the coaches that get inside their athlete and get more out of them. That's a real coach.
right, and that exactly it speaks to exactly what I'm saying. Most coaches who call themselves coaches are trainers. They're going to
Yeah.
go, hey, you're going to run laps, you're going to spar, you're going to do this, give me, you know, and the real coach. And here's the thing: is most of you listening to this aren't going to be coaches, so you got to become your own coach. If you want to get better, you got to be able to have that conversation in your head that goes, you know what? I've got to do this workout, or I am going to go to this other gym, or I am going to, whatever it is, get outside your comfort zone because it'll stretch you. So what's happening is when you are taking your fighters to other gyms, you're doing so many things for them. But in my estimation, the most important thing that you're doing is you're teaching them to practice courage. I just wrote an article about this yesterday called Practice Courage. And
Yeah.
practicing courage is, we know what, like if you say to the person, hey, next Saturday, we're going to go to this gym. You know, these guys are badasses. We've never been there. They got the state championship, whatever it is. And you tell them this a week in advance, you know that they're shitting their pants for it.
It's on their mind. Yeah, it's on their mind for sure.
Right.
Man.
And then sometimes, and I'm sure you've had this, some of the guys don't show up. You know, it's like I remember in martial arts, like when we go, hey, sparring was Wednesday night, there was always a few people that never showed up for sparring night.
Or you get guys who, I can't find my mouthpiece. I forget. Yeah. Forgetful on the day you're supposed to get in there.
Right. And so I love this conversation because back then I didn't know what I know now, where I might have actually sat them down and said, listen, there are things in life that you need to do afraid. And that's what sparring is going to teach you. Yeah. There's going to be things in life. And that's why fighting is such a great metaphor for working on a relationship, working on a business, because it's teaching you not to quit. It's teaching you what are the angles. It's teaching you, you know, what is the conditioning. And these are all metaphors, everybody. These are metaphors for, you know.
It also shows you, I think, is important that it's usually not as bad as you think it might have been. You know, even if you get your ass whooped. I mean, everyone's had days in the gym or in a real fight where, you know, someone got the best of them, but you know what, you still came out of it. You know, if you came out of it and you're alive, it probably wasn't quite as bad as you thought it might have been. Okay, yeah. Okay, you took a couple body shots, or that guy hit you with the right hand. Okay, but probably got a little better because of it.
Yeah. It's funny. I got a big smile on my face because it's almost as if you read my newsletter the day before yesterday, because it was this 3-part thing called Practicing Courage. And I'm talking in it and I say, listen, you can't be brave if you're not afraid. You know what bravery feels like and looks like. You know what, you're sitting there watching somebody and you're going, whoa, could I get up after that shot? Would I keep going? You know, our ego says we're going to do that, but then when it's time to go, it's different. It's easy to stay down there. And so the practicing courage metaphor is every time you get this fear spike that makes you go, you know what, I'm okay. And you want to step away from the challenge. If it's small, that's an opportunity to practice courage. When you get, and I really believe that when you understand the relationship between fear and courage, that you build it like you do with your freaking insane push-ups and your ab routines and stuff like that. I mean, if you guys, when you go online, you check out, you know, some of the stuff that he does, you can't look at that and go, I'm going to do that routine. Like you got to build that. I mean, there's an insane bedrock of discipline and repetition and strength, just like becoming a good fighter.
I'll tell you what, hey, not to cut you off, but when you thinking of quotes here, speaking about fear, I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with them, but you would love some of the custom auto quotes from the early Tyson days.
Oh
Where he
yeah,
said, the coward and the hero, they feel the same fear. It's how do they react to it that
yeah.
differentiates them. I mean,
You all, yeah,
he's
yeah. No,
beautiful.
so he was a real coach, and we use that one. I quote D'Amato a lot on that one, particularly the difference between the hero and the coward, what they do with their fear. It's great. Okay, let's jump back to, although I'm enjoying talking about the fighting, is there a best thing about this lockdown for you? Is there something in it that you're digging?
I mean, I don't know that I couldn't pinpoint something exactly. I mean, it's like, to me, whether we're in lockdown or not, I mean, I'm going to wake up and bust my ass regardless. So like I said, from that standpoint, I can't say that there's really been a significant difference there. Like my mindset didn't suddenly change because we're in a lockdown.
Right,
I still get up early and go. I'm basically doing the same routine I always do. So
right. Yeah, I figured that out. From you, you're very Spartan in that lifestyle. You train and you train fighters and stuff like that. Most people, like for me, uh, I finally, like I've been working 7 days a week, I'm exhausted, so but for me, my whole business was in-person live seminars. So I
yeah,
haven't, we had to postpone 15 seminars in April, May. We got no money coming in. I had to like become relevant again we built 2 new websites. We put online courses on. We're working our ass. So, I explain that to people, like that pressure can compel you to do something that maybe you needed to do or should have done.
yeah, and that's like I know. I mean, I'm not downplaying like the economic hardship that people are going through. I mean, what I'm saying is like, my routine is the same, but I do understand that a lot of people are going through hard times. So from that standpoint, I do think that regardless of what you're going through, there's probably in some ways like people that are resourceful. You're gonna maybe think of something new or different that you can do that you didn't do before. Like you're saying, you made a couple new websites, whatever. So there's opportunities there to kind of think outside the box and create something new
Right.
or different.
Right. Cool. Is there, I think you alluded this to before, probably the same answer. Worst thing about the lockdown?
Worst thing, like just the worst thing I guess is like we had a huge fight in England May 2nd. It was going to be a pay-per-view show that got canceled. So we're pushed back to July 4th, and then but being realistic, I'd be surprised if there's a fight in July, and if there is, it's probably going to be the way it's moving now is going to be behind closed doors, which is going to
Right.
be kind of strange, not having a crowd, the vibe of the crowd. But
Right. Crazy times we're in, man.
yeah,
So much information out there on this. You strike me as the type of guy that you're just doing your own thing and you're literally rolling with the punches. And but are you staying up to date on the news? Where are you getting information? How are you verifying it?
information. I mean, I don't obsess over the news. It's like I see stuff online, whether it's social media or and it's like I want to be aware, but at the same time, I'm not wasting too much time reading the news because at the end of the day, for myself, it's not really changing my life.
Right.
Whether I read the latest article or not about the current status of the coronavirus. I mean, I want to be aware, obviously, but I still got to go about my business. I still got to take care of myself.
Right.
You know, you
Yeah.
know, I don't want to be ignorant to what's going on, but at the same time, I think a lot of people spend too much time worrying about something that they can't change.
Right.
There's being aware and being excessively aware. There's a difference there.
I dig it. I dig it. Um, then this again, go as light or as deep as you want on this. If I called you up and I said, "Hey, I'm putting you in charge of the country right now," is there something that you would change or do?
It's tough to say. I mean, even like we're talking about verifying sources of news. I mean, does anyone really know what's going on?
Right.
I don't know the answer as far as when you can open things up. How bad is it really? How many people? have had the coronavirus that just never knew about it. So, you know, are there millions of people walking around that had it and didn't know? So maybe it's,
Right.
you know, maybe, I mean, and I'm not minimizing those that have been impacted by it, but at the same time, you know, what are the real percentages? Nobody really knows, or if they do, I mean, how do you verify it?
Yeah,
You know?
it's very strange. My second to last question here sounds repetitive. Do you have a dog?
I do, yeah.
You. What kind of dog?
Pit bull.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this sounds like a question
I'm a
I've already
big
asked.
dog person. Always had it.
What's that? Yeah, yeah. Me too, man. Somebody just sent me a picture from like 25 years ago, black and white picture where one of my dogs is like, I can see one of his ears in the picture, and I was like flashing back to that. But I was like, so this sounds like a question I've already asked before, you know, when I said, hey, what's the worst thing, you know, about this, blah, blah, blah. But this question is, what's the most challenging thing? Because when somebody's on a podcast or you're talking and you're a public figure, you're talking as Ross, this boxing coach online, you know, blah, we tend to, even when I do, you know, podcasts during the week where I'm the guest, there's an energy of it, of I'm presenting information, like I'm being as authentic as I can, but I'm also being the coach, right? I'm being the personality that people think, here's this subject matter expert. So this last question, I always phrase it and I try to like pre-brief it as, you're out with your dog and you're sitting down and you look over your dog and you go, you know what sucks? And I know that's not your personality, but what is the most challenging thing through this? And it can't be, we're supposed to, you know, have this fight on May 2nd. You know, is there, and I know, like, I want to lead this because I'm getting a sense, most people are going to hear this as an audio, but I can see your body language when you talk about certain things. So if you don't say it, I'm going to try and drill into it, but what is the most challenging thing for you through this? Your dog.
I'm talking to my dog. It's tough to say. I don't know, because I mean, like I said, I can't really say that, you know, I've suddenly encountered challenges because of the lockdown. I think maybe there's an inconvenience to it for myself. It's like, hey, I say I want to go, you know, just go pick up a coffee. Now I got to kind of jump through hoops and wonder if it's safe, or, you know, this place isn't open. And so I think maybe some of the everyday activities that you kind of take for granted, you know, you want to stop and, you know, grab something to eat, or, you know, meet up with someone to go have a coffee, where you can't do that now. So, but I mean, that's pretty minor. I mean, I'm not trying to bitch and moan that I can't get a coffee. I mean,
right.
You know?
No, I dig that. And you love boxing so much, and you love coaching.
See, that's my life. So, I mean, you know, I know you don't want me to say it again, but that is my life. So it sucks, you know, because it's not just like, it's not just, okay, the fight was canceled, but it's like, there's a vibe. What you know, there's a vibe and an energy in the gym when you got 20 fighters in there, and you know, they're working hard, but then they're done and you're shooting the shit. You know, there's a social aspect that's missing now. So, but I mean, again, I like to think that you could put me on an island by myself, I'm going to figure it out.
No, I get that. You're freaking, listen, dude, before it was cool, you're like in the woods, fucking like running in the snow, doing pull-ups in the snow. You know, so to me, when I saw you, and again, you know, I'll put this up on Vimeo so people can watch it too, but most people will hear it as just an audio. But when I saw you say with your face, Ross, boxing saved me, and being in the gym, and you refer to your fighters as the kids, right? You know, I think you said the boys.
I mean, some, not all, but yes, you know.
Yeah, but it was like, I'm taking the kids or the boys to go fight at this other gym. And there's a part of you, whether you're thinking about it consciously or not, is like that. If I can show this guy how to channel his energy, he's not going to end up dead or in jail, because you see yourself in some of the fighters and some of the youngsters that come in there. And if you're not able to do that, like to me, like if you're really talking to your dog, and I don't know if you drink or not, but if, you know, if you had like 2 beers and you looked at the dog, you go, man, I miss hanging out with all the kids at the gym or all the fighters.
Miss the gym. So I tell you what, you know, I don't want to like, you know, I won't get into too much of it, but you know, if I go back in time to I'm 17 or I'm 18, like I was a knucklehead. You know, it's like I was talented in the gym, but I was a knucklehead outside. You know,
Right.
and you know, I wasn't one to walk away from a conflict, and I fucked around and did things I shouldn't have done. So I know there are a lot of people like I was, you know, that now they can't go to the gym. And they're locked down, of course, but you know, you wonder how long this shit goes on for.
Right.
Are they coming back in 4 months or 6 months, or have they kind of forgotten about it? So, you know, that's where I just hope that the world kind of comes back to normal at some point. You know, because I know boxing is, you know, it's not what it was even in the 80s. It has made a nice comeback. So I know a lot of people kind of have forgotten about it as the main sport, but there's still some of us like our life revolves around it. You know, it's
Right.
like it's addictive. Once you're there, it just becomes part of who you are.
Right. No, I hear you, and I agree. And it's funny. One of the things that I just started actually last week, you know, I've got a training team of 10 mobile training guys, active duty, a couple of retired people. We got 10 interns. So like most of the courses we do around the world, I don't even go to.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
you know, I haven't been teaching full time. I train my trainers, and then my trainers go out because we're dealing mostly with
Yeah.
military law enforcement organizations. But I used to be on the road. 1 year I was on the road 260 days. I mean, it was
Wow.
insane back in 2000. You know, I closed my school in 2003 and went full-time seminars. And but I used to do every one of them. I'd, you know, be gone, and my courses were five days, 40 hours. It was insane op tempo, the pace of it. But about 15 years ago, when my business started to scale a bit, I had to develop trainers, and then I had to decide, well, if I'm going to really reach more people, I need to focus on training my trainers. And I haven't taught group classes since 2003.
Yeah.
Last week, Ross, I started an online group class where Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I taught through Zoom like this. And
Okay.
we had 70 people sign up, which is how many people I had at my school in Montreal back in the day.
Wow.
And it's like the fountain of youth. I'm
Yeah.
fucking talking to people,
Yeah.
demo, like I got to write out a lesson plan. Okay, here's what we're going to cover today. And I realized, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I missed that, how much that was part of me going to
Yeah.
the gym, opening my gym, walking around, vacuuming the place, cleaning shit. This is my gym, telling people, like, put your equipment away, like all this shit of, so it was interesting, you know, watching you and hearing you say that, because I just experienced that again. And I just wanted to throw that idea out at you, that you can get a free Zoom account and have 99 people on it for free. Or sorry,
Wow.
up to, I think it cuts off at 30 minutes or 45 minutes, but you can go to get a free. And so for you as a coach and as a mentor, this might be something where, like, you say to your younger athletes, hey guys, a couple of times a week, we're going to get on. We're just going to
Yeah.
shadow box with each other. I'm going to watch your head movement, and you keep their head in the game. So when the world turns back on, they're still connected to you.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so check that out, dude. Final message for anyone listening about about mindset training. Any other quotes?
Final message. I don't know. You know, I think it's just kind of. I think it's a good time to learn how to be self-sufficient, you know, especially like training wise, you know, especially like, you know, you got law enforcement guys, just as far as staying fit. I think more and more people now are starting to realize that, hey, you know what, like we can actually do pretty well without a whole lot in terms of equipment.
Right.
Whether it's calisthenics or picking up a rock or, you know, working with some basic free weights in the house, you don't really need much of anything. And, you know, I've been saying that for 20 years, you know, and I used to have guys saying, oh, what the hell? Look at this fool. He's out there working out outside. Now everybody's doing it. You know, it's like now you
Right.
have to. So, you know, I think, you know, and that's, again, if you look back at, like we're saying, wrestlers, martial artists, boxers, that's how we all came up. You'd be doing push-ups and squats and burpees. You didn't need anything. If you
Right.
have effort, consistency, and you bust your ass, you're going to do pretty well with anything. And I always say with anything, including nothing. So you kind of just got to make the most of, you know, whatever you have access to. And you can still come out of this maybe possibly in some way a better version of yourself.
Beautiful. Great message, man. Best way to learn more about you. What's your website and where are you most active?
Website's just rosstraining.com, but I'm on social media at Ross Training, Instagram, Facebook, Ross Training. And then I'm not on Twitter as often, but every so often at Ross Training.
Right. Dude, I'm so excited we reconnected. I loved our conversation. I love boxing. I'm probably gonna go hit my bag.
Cool.
Because it's just inspiring, talking to you and remembering all those flashbacks. Thank you for taking the time.
No,
Good
thank you, man.
fighters, and check out that Zoom thing, man, because it's
I will. No, I
free.
appreciate that.
And how cool would it be for you to, tell all you guys, hey, I know you're not busy, like the kids are, we're doing a class tomorrow, and you put in, bring your phone in your garage, make them skip, make them do shadow. Freaking awesome.
That's cool.
Okay, be safe, man.
All right, you too, man.